In early November 2025, the Philippines faced one of its most formidable weather threats in recent history as Super Typhoon Uwan, internationally known as Fung-wong, swept across the archipelago with devastating force. With wind speeds exceeding 205 kilometers per hour and a storm diameter spanning over 1,400 kilometers, Uwan triggered the highest level storm alerts across Luzon, Visayas, and parts of Mindanao. Typhoon Uwan entered the Philippine Area of Responsibility, PAR, as a severe tropical storm and rapidly intensified into a super typhoon over the Philippine Sea. By November 9th, its eye was located approximately 415 kilometers east of Manila, moving west-northwestward at 33 kilometers per hour. The Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical, and Astronomical Services Administration, PAGASA, issued signal number 5, the highest cyclone warning, over Aurora, Camarines Norte, Camarines Sur, and Catanduanes. The storm's massive breadth meant that strong to storm force winds extended up to 780 kilometers from its center, affecting nearly the entire country. PAGASA warned that Uwan's trajectory would bring it close to Catanduanes before making landfall over Aurora province late Sunday or early Monday. In anticipation of Uwan's landfall, nearly 1 million residents were evacuated from high-risk areas. Local governments, in coordination with the Office of Civil Defense, OCD, activated emergency shelters and prepositioned relief supplies. The Department of Social Welfare and Development, DSWD, reported that over 2,000 evacuation centers were operational nationwide. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. placed the nation under a state of heightened alert, mobilizing military and police units to assist in rescue operations and logistical support. The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, NDRRMC, issued advisories urging communities in flood-prone and landslide-prone areas to relocate immediately. As Uwan's outer bands swept across eastern Luzon and the Visayas, power outages were reported in Catanduanes, northern Samar, and parts of Camarines Sur. Transmission lines were toppled by gusts reaching 260 kilometers per hour, and several major roads became impassable due to fallen trees and debris. The Department of Public Works and Highways, DPWH, confirmed that at least 12 bridges were rendered unusable due to flooding and structural damage. In Virac, Catanduanes, video footage showed roofs torn off buildings and streets submerged under waist-deep water. Telecommunication services were intermittently disrupted, particularly in eastern Visayas, where cell towers were damaged. The Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, CAAP, suspended flights in and out of Baikal and eastern Visayas, stranding thousands of passengers. Typhoon Uwan struck during the peak of the rice and corn harvest season, threatening billions of pesos in agricultural losses. The Department of Agriculture, DA, estimated that over 60,000 hectares of farmland were at risk, particularly in central Luzon and Baikal. Fishing communities along the eastern seaboard were also severely affected. Hundreds of boats were destroyed or swept away, and coastal fish pens were inundated. The Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, BFAR, warned of long-term disruptions to local seafood supply chains. Despite proactive evacuations, thousands of families were displaced, and many remain in temporary shelters with limited access to clean water and sanitation. Health officials raised concerns about potential outbreaks of waterborne diseases, especially in overcrowded evacuation centers. International aid organizations, including the Red Cross and UNICEF, began coordinating with local agencies to deliver food, hygiene kits, and medical supplies. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, pledged emergency funding to support relief efforts. Meteorologists noted that Uwan's rapid intensification and massive size were consistent with trends linked to climate change. Warmer ocean temperatures in the Pacific contributed to the storm's explosive growth, while competing subtropical ridges influenced its erratic path. Experts from the University of the Philippines Resilience Institute called for a re-evaluation of the country's disaster preparedness protocols, emphasizing the need for climate-adaptive infrastructure, improved early warning systems, and community-based resilience programs. Fung-wong, which could cover two-thirds of the Southeast Asian archipelago with its 994-mile-wide rain and wind band, approached from the Pacific while the Philippines was still dealing with the devastation wrought by Typhoon Kalmiji, which left at least 224 people dead in central island provinces on Tuesday before pummeling Vietnam, where at least 5 were killed. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has declared a state of emergency due to the extensive devastation caused by Kalmiji and the expected calamity from Fung-wong, which is called Uwan in the Philippines. Fung-wong, with winds of up to 115 miles per hour and gusts of up to 143 miles per hour, was spotted by government forecasters before noon Sunday over coastal waters near the town of Pandan in eastern Catanduanes province, where torrential rains and fog have obscured visibility. The typhoon is expected to track northwestward and make landfall on the coast of Aurora or Isabela province later Sunday or early Monday, state forecasters said. Tropical cyclones with sustained winds of 115 miles per hour or higher are categorized in the Philippines as a super typhoon, a designation adopted years ago to underscore the urgency tied to more extreme weather disturbances. More than 916,860 people were evacuated from high-risk villages in northeastern provinces, including in Baikal, a coastal region vulnerable to Pacific cyclones and mud flows from Mayon, one of the country's most active volcanoes. Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro Jr., who oversees the country's disaster response agencies and the military, warned about the potentially catastrophic impact of Fung-wong in televised remarks Saturday. He said the storm could affect a vast expanse of the country, including Cebu, the central province hit hardest by Typhoon Kalmiji, and metropolitan Manila, the densely populated capital region which is the seat of power and the country's financial center. More than 30 million people could be exposed to hazards posed by Fung-wong, the Office of Civil Defense said. Teodoro asked people to follow orders by officials to immediately move away from villages and towns prone to flash floods, landslides, and coastal tidal surges. We need to do this because when it's already raining or the typhoon has hit and flooding has started, it's hard to rescue people, Teodoro said. The Philippines has not called for international help following the devastation caused by Kalmiji, but Teodoro said the United States, the country's longtime treaty ally, and Japan were ready to provide assistance. As Fung-wong approached with its wide band of fierce wind and rain, several eastern towns and villages lost power, Bernardo Rafaelito Alejandro, Deputy Administrator of the Office of Civil Defense said. Authorities in northern provinces to be hit or sideswiped by Fung-wong preemptively declared the shutdown of schools and most government offices on Monday and Tuesday. At least 325 domestic and 61 international flights have been canceled over the weekend and into Monday, and more than 6,600 commuters and cargo workers were stranded in at least 109 seaports, where the Coast Guard prohibited ships from venturing into rough seas. Authorities warned of a high risk of life-threatening and damaging storm surge of more than nearly 10 feet along the coasts of more than 20 provinces and regions, including metropolitan Manila. In the Aurora region, in the east of Luzon, BBC News spoke to Hagunoy, 21, who works at one of the dozen hotels which line the coast in Sabang. He said local police had repeatedly visited in recent days to ensure all guests were evacuated ahead of the storm. The hotels were all deserted on Sunday morning as residents braced for the typhoon to arrive, which was expected at around midnight. While the tide had risen sharply, Hagunoy said we would stay as long as he can to guard the property, before riding his motorbike home to safety. Staff had secured the gates and tied windows shut with rope to try to stop the glass from shattering in the wind. Fung-wong has also forced the suspension of rescue operations following the passage of Kalmiji, one of the strongest typhoons this year. Heavy rainfall sent torrents of mud down hillsides and into residential areas. Some poorer neighborhoods were obliterated by the fast-moving flash floods. The Philippines government declared a state of calamity across the country after Typhoon Kalmiji and in preparation for the coming storm. It has given government agencies more power to access emergency funds and fast-track the procurement and delivery of essential goods and services to those in need. For some Filipinos, the devastation wrought by Typhoon Kalmiji earlier this week has left them even more anxious about the storm to come. We decided to evacuate because the recent typhoon brought floods in our area, and now I just want to keep my family safe, Norlito Dugan told the AFP news agency. He is among those who have taken shelter in a church in the city of Sorsogon in Luzon. Another resident, Maxine Dugan, said, "I'm here because the waves near my house are now huge. I live near the shore. The winds there are now very strong, and the waves are huge." A storm surge was also reported on the coastal Virac Boulevard. Seawater covered the road and entered some of the houses along the road. Meanwhile, floodwater flowed with mud, sand and gravel from the Mayon Volcano to Purok 8 in Barangay Masarawag in Guinobatan, all by following the night-long rain. In Barangay Dapdap in Legazpi City, a tree fell on a parked taxicle due to the strong gust of wind. The tree was immediately removed by the owner. One resident manually removed the tree branches. Because of the fallen tree, only small vehicles can pass through the area. Floodwater has also started rising in some areas in Barangay Orosite. At Legazpi City Boulevard, the sea remains calm despite the strong wind and rain, but there was zero visibility on the city streets because of heavy rain since 4 a.m. A few motorists were still seen traveling despite the torrential rain. In Tabaco City, power has been out since Saturday night. Huge waves meanwhile hammer the coast of Pantao, Libon, still in Albay. Also on Sunday, the Philippine Coast Guard evacuated 17 people from the island town of Jomalig, Quezon. The mandatory evacuation was of 5 families in Sitio Moros in Barangay Talasoy. The 17 were brought to the Jomalig Central Elementary School, which serves as an evacuation center for the town. As of 11 a.m. on Sunday, signal number 5 has been raised over parts of Aurora, Camarines Norte, Camarines Sur, and Catanduanes. The center of the Eye of Uwan may pass close to Catanduanes on Sunday morning and make landfall over Aurora on Sunday evening or Monday morning. The entire province of Aurora has been placed under red alert as local authorities intensify preparations ahead of the expected landfall of Super Typhoon Uwan, international name Fung-wong. At the same time, the provincial government has prepositioned over PHP 1.9 million worth of health emergency commodities across municipalities and hospitals to ensure readiness for potential health crises. NGR, Amado Elson A. Egargu, Provincial Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Officer, PDRRMO, on Saturday evening, said he submitted Aurora Province Situational Report Number 2 to Governor Isidro Sid P. Galban, providing detailed updates on preparedness measures and potential impacts of the typhoon. All municipalities are on heightened alert. Our local governments are conducting preemptive evacuations, prepositioning relief goods, and ensuring the safety of residents in low-lying and coastal areas, said ENGR. Igargu. As early as November 7th, Governor Galban issued PDR-RMC Memorandum Number 2025-86, ordering the suspension of classes at all levels and work in all government offices on November 10th as a precautionary measure. The Aurora Coast Guard Station also issued a temporary suspension of all sea travel starting 11:30 a.m. on November 8th for all types of vessels within its area of responsibility. The Provincial Social Welfare and Development Office, PSWDO, and Provincial Government of Aurora, PGA, prepositioned family food packs in the Daikati area, Dilasag, Casiguran, Dinalungan, to ensure quick relief distribution in emergencies. Igargu urged residents, especially in low-lying and coastal areas, to follow local government advisories. Do not wait for heavy rains and strong winds before evacuating. Safety depends on preparedness and discipline. All sailing, swimming, and other water-related activities are strictly prohibited until the typhoon leaves the Philippine area of responsibility, he said. Real-time monitoring of rivers, tributaries, and flood-prone areas is ongoing, with the DOST PAGASA Storm Chasers team conducting field surveys and post-validation in Baler to assess weather conditions. In parallel, the Provincial Health Office, PHO, reported that over PHP 1.9 million worth of health emergency commodities have been prepositioned to strengthen the province's response capacity for health-related emergencies. Igargu assured that coordination with municipal DRRMs and national agencies is continuous. Our goal is to prevent loss of life and ensure the safety of every Ororano. Cooperate with authorities and follow advisories to stay safe, he said. Meanwhile, Uwan is expected to drench the regions of northern and central Luzon, Metro Manila, Calabarzon, Baikal, Mindoro Island, Marinduque, and Romblon, as well as Samar Island and Biliran with rains of up to over 200 millimeters a day while it crosses the Luzon landmass. PAGASA warned such volume could cause massive flooding, especially in vulnerable areas. The projected rains, classified by PAGASA as torrential, have prompted the managements of the Angat, IPO, Ambacleo, Binga, and Mayget dams to open their respective gates and discharge water, reported PAGASA hydrometeorologist Juan Carlo Pamantuan. Angat Dam has reached the normal high level, while the other dams open their respective gates as a measure to prevent overflow. More volume of rain would pour over mountainous areas such as Sierra Madre, Caraballo, and the Cordilleras, which could cause numerous landslide incidents. The mountains could help weaken Uwan and downgrade it into a typhoon once again, according to Galing. However, he warned Uwan's rains would continue dampening the western section of Luzon, including Metro Manila, until tomorrow, as it moves slowly going north. PAGASA weather specialist Benison Esterija explained Uwan is likely to slow down as it emerges toward the West Philippine Sea and the Balintang and Bashi channels, because of the high-pressure area over East Asia. AirAsia canceled several flights from Sunday to Monday, November 9th to 10th, amid the onslaught of Super Typhoon Uwan. Affected guests may opt to move their flights to another schedule, store the price value of their flights into their AirAsia accounts, or request a full refund, said the airline carrier. Malacanang has suspended work in government offices and classes across major regions of Luzon and Visayas as Super Typhoon Uwan barrels toward Aurora with destructive winds and torrential rain. Under Memorandum Circular Number 106 issued on Sunday, government work is suspended on Monday in the National Capital Region, Cordillera Administrative Region, Ilocos Region, Cagayan Valley, Central Luzon, Calabarzon, Mimaropa, Baikal, and Eastern Visayas. Meanwhile, classes at all levels in the aforementioned regions, as well as in Western Visayas, Central Visayas, and the Negros Island region, are suspended on November 10th and 11th. Agencies responsible for basic, vital, and health services, preparedness and response duties must continue to remain operational, the circular read. Malacanang said other government offices in affected areas may adopt alternate work arrangements to ensure the continuity of essential functions. Local governments outside the listed regions are authorized to issue their own class and work suspensions as needed. Work in private companies, the palace added, will be left to the discretion of their respective heads. Continuous intense rains and strong winds brought by Super Typhoon Uwan caused flooding and toppled trees in the provinces of Catanduanes and Albay on Sunday morning, November 9th. In Catanduanes, the persistent rains triggered river overflows and flooding in Virac, Baras, Bato, Panganiban, and nearby towns. Heavy rains since Saturday night also submerged Gagan village in Virac town. In Panganiban, residents were advised to stay inside their homes or evacuation shelters due to flooding in the villages of Sta Ana and San Pedro. The Panganiban Municipal Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office said the Viga to Panganiban Road was impassable due to a felled tree. In Albay Province, flooding also affected Barangay Kimintong in Daraga Town, while a minor landslide was reported in Barangay Bagambayan. Albay Governor Noel Rosal advised the public to avoid low-lying, landslide-prone, and flood-prone areas as the province is expected to still experience heavy rains and gusty winds until this afternoon. Gremel Alexis Naz, spokesperson of the Office of Civil Defense Baikal, said 30,831 families or 107,318 individuals were evacuated across the region's 6 provinces, while 2,575 passengers and 1,143 rolling cargoes were stranded in various ports. Naz said that a 51-year-old man was injured after falling from a roof. He was preparing in Bato Town in Catanduanes.
Lakas po mga dulso. Ito na. Bagyong Uwan po, napakalakas. Wala na, sira na yung ibang bangka mga dudes. Oh.
Inabot ng flooring